Well, this is some shit news. But let's look at the bright side. At least they added in that gun they had in the promotional material, but didn't think was important enough to actually put in the game until now. Or at least the 1.6 update that fixed the things that the QA testers should have caught. No. But more importantly, the multiplayer update where they figured out they incorrectly balanced the difficulty modes. Again? Ugh. What's up guys, it's me Zero to my Kitsune, and today I want to talk about Mass Effect Andromeda, or more importantly the whole Mass Effect series being put on ice. And to open it up, I want to tell y'all a quote from the EA CEO Andrew Wilson, because I thought it was a bit interesting. He says, "And while overall the aggregate review scores were lower than we would have liked, we did have over 100 reviewers score the game at 80 or higher." I just thought that was so telling. It's a funny spin. Out of the entire internet, you had only 100 reviewers score the game at 80, not 90, 80 or higher. That is hilarious. But going from there, let's actually talk about the Mass Effect hiatus. First of all, I want to talk about a little bit of news that's going through, and I don't think it's completely true. Now yes, BioWare Montreal is being put on different projects, but some people are saying outright that it is downsizing, aka people are being fired. From what I've read so far, no one's been fired, just everyone's being moved around. Which is better news than, the initial, because it really would suck for people to be outright fired over Mass Effect Andromeda. No one deserves to lose their jobs, even with one of my favorite franchises being turned into what some would call a train wreck. I didn't think the game was that bad. But moving on. So the game's been put on hiatus, and the people who are being moved around from BioWare Montreal, they're being moved, some of them to EA Motive, which is working on the Star Wars Battlefront 2. Some of them are continuing to work on Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer, not single player content. So no words on DLCs, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. And finally, some are being moved on to working on BioWare's new IP, which has been pushed back to at least April 2018. Now let's talk about the new IP for a second. First of all, I'm not really hyped for any new BioWare title since the company has failed to impress me since 2012 with Mass Effect 3, and my first new dive into it was with Andromeda, and we all know how that turned out. But in other news for the IP, it is apparently an action game. And I guess first of all, fuck you to all RPG lovers, but on another bit of news, it is also going to be a live service type game, which has been compared to Destiny. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really need another Borderlands because, I've already got a company that's... Okay, maybe I do need another Borderlands, but my point still stands. And speaking of standing to my point, I do stand by my review. And it'll be linked below for everyone to check out. But I thought the game was okay, and funny enough, I said it was okay and it would be a good buy when the price dropped. Lo and behold, you can find it in certain places for 30 bucks. So check out the review and maybe go ahead and buy it. But talking about the game for a bit, I want to talk about the ending. So spoiler alerts for anyone who hasn't finished the game or anyone who cares about the very end of it. Andromeda does hint at the very end about an expansion that would include the Quarians, the most popular race in Mass Effect, which was confusing for why they weren't included in Andromeda in the first place. And that's going to be really sad if they don't, do that DLC. I didn't expect that to be a hint at Mass Effect Andromeda 2. I simply expected it to be a DLC campaign added onto the game later. But the game doesn't have a season pass that is required to fill up, even though they could probably half-ass it like other companies do when their games don't sell well. But it doesn't have that commitment, so they could just outright say no DLC for Andromeda, we're just gonna keep updating the multiplayer for about maybe 2 more months and then call it a day. And if they do that, that will be the last little bit of faith I have remaining in BioWare. I have no faith in EA, but BioWare specifically, that'll be the last little bit of hope lost. and maybe even I'll retroactively change my review, or at least add something in the description saying this game ends on a cliffhanger that will never be resolved. If I have to do that, I will. And it's sad because not only did the ending hint at an expansion, the Quarians obviously, there were also other smaller, more subtle hints to more expansive things, story points and plot points that weren't resolved inside the game itself. So, and they might not go anywhere with this game anymore, which is gonna be really, shitty. So that's that about the whole Mass Effect thing. It's sad, but apparently the game series is gonna be put on ice for several years at minimum. But before we go, I want to briefly talk about what I think were the real failings of Mass Effect Andromeda. And I'm talking in two specific areas. One, them not listening to the community, and two, the terrible ass PR they got when the game came out. In the first area with the whole community thing, before the game was released, we wanted to play as aliens. Before anything was really announced, we thought we were going to play as the alien race, and maybe they could have played it safe by either having us play as an Asari for a female protagonist, get brownie points there, or maybe as the Quarians, who were the fan favorite race. But we didn't get that, we got boring old human. We also wanted more expansive romance options, either a larger selection of romance options, or maybe make them all bisexual so everyone can have anyone. I don't know if that would solve the whole choices thing, but more importantly, have more gameplay attached to them, have us go on more than one quest with them to romance them, stuff like that. And then finally, we wanted more RPG, more meaningful RPG choices. We wanted the class to actually affect the story, just like in the Mass Effect 3 DLC, where you got a Paragon prompt if you were an engineer and only if you were an engineer. We wanted more of that, not the basic removal of the class system. And going on the terrible PR thing, it's the obvious things. It was buggy on launch in the worst ways, resulting in literal memes, and memes just spread around like wildfire of every single issue. The writing had hints of social justice blah 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 during a time where the gaming community has a huge divide on that very subject, and you can debate on that whether or not the game was made by SJWs. I've heard arguments on both sides, but to me personally, hearing aliens talk about pronoun preferences just pulled me right out of the game and put me right back into the real life where these are real issues that people talk about every day. And in another case, the whole trans character, which was so poorly written, even the community she was intended to represent felt like it was pandering. And finally, the uglification of characters. I don't know, I thought they were cute, but the internet spoke, they said they weren't. And more importantly, there's no excuse for having one face for all the Asari characters. Anyways, just boiling it down, we're almost at the 10-minute mark. Just one little line to sum this up. The game was initially supposed to be a standalone title, that's how it was advertised before it was released, and despite the cliffhanger basically hinting at large numbers of expansions and a new trilogy, lo and behold, poor sales may have retroactively made that true. I don't know. Either way, tell me your opinions in the comment section, whether or not BioWare deserves another chance, another hope when they make their next game, and I'll see you guys next time.